Do you think that this is a hot take or not? Oregon can be anywhere from the best team in the Big Ten by a significant margin to being clearly fourth. Like, they have that range.
I think that's a hot take. I would say that's a hot take, but I understand where you're coming from because the last couple of years with Lanning, I get it was year 1 and 2. They had very high expectations, and the one hump they weren't able to get over was Washington. 0-3 against the Huskies. Their offense, I said earlier in the show, I think Michigan could have the best defense in the country. I think Oregon could have the best offense by a significant margin. Dillon Gabriel at Oklahoma, he was good, but I think I was listening to Joel Klatt. I was listening to somebody the other day, and they're talking about the design of the Sooners offense where they go vertical so often with Nick Anderson and Andrell Anthony, who ended up getting hurt. But Oregon, they're more focused on what can you do in the slot, slant routes, out routes, those types of things. And with Tej Johnson, Evan Stewart coming over from Texas A&M, these fast receivers that are able to make quick cuts, that's going to be really, really good for Dillon Gabriel. Like you said, Jordan James at running back. I like their tight end room a lot. Terrence Ferguson, Patrick Herbert, two really big tight ends, 6'6 plus, 250 plus. I think they have the best offensive tackle duo in Cornelius and Connerly. My only question mark for Oregon's offense is the interior of the offensive line. And looking at their depth chart, I think it's going to be a solid group in there too. So
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, when you lose Jackson Powers Johnson, that's always going to hurt. But Ipani Lalolu, I hope that's how you pronounce his name. He played as a true freshman a lot last year. Sophomore now, projected to start at center. And then Marcus Harper, the second, Matthew Bedford, the Indiana transfer, are going to make up still a stout interior.
yeah,
Defensively, that's the only reason why I think that this team could be worse than the former Big Three is, I mean, they got Jamari Caldwell and Derek Harmon in the portal, and
yeah,
Jordan Birch comes back, and Mateo Younglele was highly recruited. I get that. Jeffrey Bassa and Justin Jacobs should make up a solid linebacker core. And they do bring back Jalil Florence and they bring in Jabbar Muhammad from the portal. So I understand the sentiment that Oregon's defense could be one of the best in the country. But I also look at how, in facing a pretty easy schedule last year, sportsrankings.com had it, or sportsreference.com had it outside of the top 30, well outside the top 30. ESPN did not have it anywhere close to the top 10. The defense against Washington would completely flail out for three quarters. And that's not a big sample size. So there's not a lot of evidence to say their defense will be bad. I don't think it will be bad. But I just wonder how they're going to, like, is there a chance that this defense can come in and be good, but then when it comes time to put the lock on and to control the game and to stop the bleeding, like, will they be able to shut down Ohio State's run game? Or will they be able to shut down Michigan's? Or Wisconsin? Wisconsin's going to have an awesome O-line, and they have a deep running back room even after losing Braylon Allen. That's really where my question stands. Is that understandable, or is the body of work and incoming players such that they're almost a lock to have one of the nation's better defenses?
I really like Oregon's front seven, front six, but I have a lot of question marks about their secondary. Now, like you said, Jabbar Muhammad came in from Washington, and Kobe Savage, I believe that's his name, the safety transfer from K State, is a very, very talented player. But if their offense in those games against Ohio State and Michigan, if the offense isn't able to stay on the field and sustain drives, it's very similar to Michigan in my opinion, where they have a lot of studs. I'm very high on Bassa and Jacobs. I think that could be the best linebacking duo in the country.
Wow.
But the depth is a concern. And if they're playing Ohio State and they're having 3-and-outs and they're not able to sustain drives, Ohio State could start wearing down that defense. Michigan could start wearing down that defense, and that's where things can get ugly. So,
Yeah, the biggest concern for me with their defense is pass rush. That's really what it is. I
yep.
think that defensive tackle core right now is better than that defensive end unit. And if they can't get pressure, and they struggled against Washington last year, and the year prior to that, they couldn't get pressure on anyone. I mean, they couldn't. And if it really depends, because if Ohio State's O-line isn't that good for what Ohio State's O-line should be, then that's probably not a huge issue. Or if Michigan's O-line is just average or above average or good but not great, then that won't be an issue either. And Wisconsin doesn't have the type of talent everywhere to where even if there is some matchup problems, Oregon should be able to wear them down. It's not a given, and upsets happen. That's an upset that actually I look at and think, well, I might predict that. But Oregon should beat them. They should be favored 9 times out of 10, unless Wisconsin somehow does something miraculous and Oregon completely tanks. I really like your take, even though I disagree with it about Bassa and Jacobs, because I look at Oregon and I can't find any true, quote unquote, weakness. I can find weak spots, weak links, areas where, well, this part of the roster is not as good as, let's say, the receiver core or the offensive tackle unit, but there truly is no bad unit, even in comparison to Ohio State. Like, I think Ohio State's O-line, or more specifically the tight end room, could be just mediocre. I don't see any unit on Oregon that can be anything worse than good. And that's what's scary, is I don't think you see that for any other team in the Big Ten. And that's why I think they have such a high ceiling.
Yeah, I know we've heard so much about Ohio State and all the guys they brought back. Oregon brings back a lot of guys that had a lot of snaps last year. And I think obviously they have a lot of talent, but the team chemistry that they have, that's going to be a big factor in how successful they're going to be this year.
Yeah. And they've developed well there. They've recruited well. They even used the portal selectively, and Bedford was good at Indiana.
Yep.
I think this will once again be one of the nation's best offensive lines, especially at pass blocking. And how about this too? It's Dillon Gabriel and Miller Moss, and not really anyone else for quarterbacks who actually have like a Heisman All-American caliber ceiling. The Big Ten is weak at quarterback. It didn't even matter that we added the 4 Pac-12 schools. They're still terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, Will Howard has a limited ceiling. We don't even know what Orgy's capable of outside of the ground game. Tyler Van Dyke has struggled. Dylan Raiola and Aiden Childs and maybe Aller probably have the highest ceilings outside of Miller Moss and Dillon Gabriel. But Childs is unproven for the most part. I'm very high on him, but that's watching selective film, liking Oregon State last year, and you just don't know how he'll do at a new school. Raiola's a freshman, and Aller stunk last year. So that quarterback advantage is big. I guess what stops me from picking them to win it all or be the top team in the Big Ten or even top 2 is just that defense. I need to see how Lupoi does with that unit, especially against teams that know how to scheme, before I can pick them to be the Big Ten's most consistent or second most consistent team.
I think a big reason I'm so high on Oregon is because, like you were talking about with the quarterbacks, I think Dillon Gabriel is head and shoulders way better than anybody else in the Big Ten. And it's kind of weird how, things flipped. Last year you had Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy. Look at the SEC. They have 5 teams that return their quarterback that started a New Year's Six Bowl last year. Texas with Ewers, Ole Miss with Dart, Cook at Missouri, Milrow at Bama and Beck at Georgia. Like the script is completely flipped where now it's the SEC that's quarterback dominant. But I mean, Miller Moss, a guy, I watched some more film of him. He had a great game against Louisville. Now, does Louisville have the best secondary, the best defense in college football? No, absolutely not. He was throwing it with a lot of confidence. He's going to be a really good player. So I like what you're talking about with Gabriel and Moss really being the 1 and 2 best quarterbacks, and then it's a big drop off.
Thank you for watching this cut of Touchdown Talk. Remember to like the video to help this channel get into the algorithm and grow as we approach the 2024 season, and also subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so that you can participate in our giveaway at 20,000 subscribers, help us to grow, join this awesome community, and also be notified when we release new content here on College Football with Sam. I would like to thank my Patreon members for sponsoring this video and channel. A shout out to Crash2488 and Brasco Rascal for being $25 a month Heisman members. A shout out to $10 a month American members, all American members, Chris Lane, Connor Little OH, and Ismar. And a shout out to $5 all conference members, John Lynn, Roaming Gnome, Matthew Sale, Austin Christmas, and Janisha Cockrell. Have a great day, guys, and we will see you soon. Bye.